Before we get into this week's episode, I have a very special announcement I'd like to share with you all. As my valued listeners, I wanted you to be the first to know about the inaugural Women and Wealth Catalyst Summit that I'll be hosting in 2025. I hope you'll join me and some other amazing women on March 27th at the Golden Gate Club in San Francisco for a full day of impactful sessions, including fireside conversations, intimate panels, and engaging discussions with values-aligned partners. Do not miss this opportunity to ignite your path to financial success and become part of a supportive network committed to achieving wealth. Reserve your spot today at women.win. That's right, ladies, women.win. And join us for a day that will shape your financial future. If you can't join us in San Francisco, be sure to stay tuned for New York City dates and venues soon to be announced. I can't wait to see you all there.
Welcome to Getting Rich Together, the show for successful women who are looking to take their financial futures to the next level. I'm your host, Shama Bunton. When I started my wealth building journey, nobody knocked on my door to give me all the answers. So I want to talk to the experts who've done it and bring the answers to you so we can discover the right opportunities that will help us achieve the financial futures we've always dreamed of together and have fun doing it. So let's dive into this episode and start getting rich together. I am here today with the bright, enthusiastic, brilliant, kind, and considerate Jen Marples. Jen, you are someone who shines a bright light on to other women. You help them step into their spotlight. Not only have you been the owner of a successful agency, you are also someone who has created an incredible speaking platform and an opportunity for people to really be able to step into their own greatness. So the Jen Marples podcast is I think one of the most incredible things that you've produced. You're Not Too Fucking Old, I think, is really the future of where all women will be stepping into. And I'm so excited today to have you on the show and to really unpack the woman behind the greatness. So thank you, Jen, for being here today. I am so lucky to have you.
Well, Shama, I'm honored to be here, and just let me know how much I owe you, because you're this is like therapy or coaching. I don't know. It's a nice way to start anything off by hearing about yourself. It's always so funny. And for somebody who's done this for companies and women for decades, it's always really humbling to hear nice things said about yourself. And I'm always the first one to say we need to accept, thank you. But that's us. We're women. We've been raised to sort of oh, that old 30-year career, that old thing, what, it's hard? Yeah, it's blood, sweat, and tears. But thank you for that beautiful introduction. I am so honored to be here with you today.
Well, Jen, before you were this incredible media powerhouse, you were once a little girl. And this little girl was once 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You can't really bypass any of these younger years. I'm so excited to hear, what was life like for you at a young age? Where were you? What were you seeing around you? What were your parents like? And more importantly, what was money like? What did you see and experience? Early money stories.
Okay, so that's a deep one. This will be the whole topic maybe for book number 2 that I'm writing. But so for me, it's funny, thinking back as a young girl, I grew up in Hawaii. So I come from a family of 4. I'm the oldest of 4 children. What do they say about the oldest in the family? The hardest work? I don't know. There are all those tropes about being the oldest, the oldest
and
girl.
They're real. It's real, right?
They are real. I was kind of the CEO of, the kids, because my brother's 5 years behind me exactly to the day. We were both born on November 18th. And if you do the math, my parents had sex on Valentine's Day. So that's how we got to that. And I have sisters that are twins that are 10 years younger. So I was at a young age, they were born when I was 10. So at a young age, I was a caregiver. So I joke, I've got my own twins that are 17. And so I joke that they were my first set of twins. So I know, and I'm almost 55 and solidly Gen X, where our parents didn't know where we were yet. At a young age, I had a ton of responsibility. And so it's something I've unpacked in the therapy over the decades. But when I look back at, we all can like trace back to understand who we are today. I've always had this big responsibility. I don't even know if they actually let young tweens and teens babysit infants anymore, but I was very much in charge as the oldest of 4. And that came with a lot of responsibility. It also came with a lot of tears, and I had a lot of aggravation against my parents because of all the responsibility that I had. And my sisters and I we weren't super close early on because of the age difference, but we've since become very close. I like to joke that my brother and I had my parents 1.0. My dad was very strict. He ruled with an iron fist. He wasn't in the military for that long. He was an engineer, but it was very much, and my parents had me when they were young. They were 23 when I was born. So it's almost like, I think back when I graduated from college, my mom was in her early 40s, and I was like, that's like almost a sister, right? So it was kind of this structured household, yet I felt like when my sisters were born, it became chaotic. I felt like things were going okay, and my brother and I had it pretty good. We're growing up in Hawaii, life was great, but for all intents and purposes, things were going great. And then my mom told me one day, she's like, oh, by the way, I'm having twins. And Shama, I intuitively knew that my world was going to start to suck and it was going to be hell. And it was, because I call it the dark times, and my maiden name is McCabe, the dark times in the McCabe family. Of course, my mom doesn't really remember that time. Kind of like I don't remember the time when all my kids, I had 3 kids in diapers, basically. I had 3 under 3 when my kids were born. So I understand it. You go into survival mode. I can understand that now. But then when they were born, it was like all hell broke loose. And then you want to talk about money stories. So growing up in Hawaii, it's very expensive to live. My mom wasn't working. My mom didn't start working until I was about 13. And so my dad worked for the government. He was a civil engineer. So he had, an okay salary, but he wasn't like a banker or whatever. And the cost of living is really high in Hawaii. And coupled with that, the public education system is pretty bad. So my parents cobbled it together and sent us all to private school. So whereas we sort of had this idyllic, beach on the weekends, school, no worries, all of a sudden, I really remember these traumatic times of literally like, how are we going to raise 4 kids, like on my dad's salary in Hawaii? And so my mom very quickly went to work when I was about 13. So my sisters were about 3 years old. And so that created even more stress and strain. I remember when my mom, it's funny what the memories we have when we're young, and you're just making me think of it. She took a woodworking class and she never really made anything, but she said she had to just go somewhere to pound nails into wood just to deal with the stress that I now know, having my own kids and having the 3 under 3, of how incredibly intense it is. And when you're kind of worried about all the kids, like where the money's coming from and all of that. So we definitely had highs and lows, and my mom went into real estate. So real estate's doing great. There was a lot of extra real estate tanking, which it always does. It's up and down. So like I said, it was the dark times. And that's when it kind of set us on this path of money being tight it always felt tight for the most part. And, I can't complain. Like I grew up in a nice house and in a nice neighborhood. I went to private school. I grew up in Hawaii. So there are 1,000 people, or millions of people rather, who had it worse than me. But I distinctly remember literally my dad like taping a TV together because there just wasn't any extra money. And this was when my kids were young, just to try to get another 5 weeks out of the TV, the old TV with the antennas. If we remember, dig back into our memories to that. And thinking about this conversation too, and I don't know if this is generational and also coupled with just how my parents were, and specifically my dad, I learned that to work is to suffer and to slave and to not be happy and to toil and to really not have any fun. Thankfully, my mom was the opposite. So she was where my dad was kind of this militant, and we had a very strained relationship, and we had it all like almost 10 years ago at 45. We had the blowout that we needed to have to repair our relationship. So my mom was sort of, they were yin and yang. My dad was militant, I never thought he was happy. He never said he loved me. Whereas my mom was the one who was the loving one and the comforting one. But what's interesting, when I fast forwarded, to early 30s, when I was going through fertility, all this stuff came up about my childhood and my father and all of this and all the stories. And it turned out I was really mad at my mom because I feel like she never defended me against my dad, who I felt in my interpretation was verbally abusive. And I just felt like I had all this pressure put on me. And I had my list of chores. My friends remembered that when they called me to say, hey, can you go to the beach? My dad's screaming at me in the background because I had all the chores to do. So it was just drilled into me that my dad was unhappy and didn't really like me. And that my mom was the one you went to for hugs. And so somehow miraculously, though, throughout that, I had a high sense of self. So I guess my mom being who she is and being strong. And we had our own stuff that we dealt with that I unpacked in therapy. And I said, Mom, we got to talk about this. Like, I did come to learn that she did defend me. I just never knew about it.
Sure.
I never knew that she had my back. I never knew that she walked up to my dad and said, I'm going to leave you if you don't start treating her better. But that took years. And I just think of all of that wasted time and all of that trauma and drama that we could have avoided if we'd had these conversations. But again, I know, talking to my own therapist and multiple different healers, that people are only equipped to deal with life with the tools that they have. And I know that now as a fully formed adult, and I know you know that. So it's very layered. So basically, in summary, it was like, to work is to slave and to suffer, and that money was tight, and to make money, you had to work. And sometimes my dad worked, he had a secondary job working with the National Guard. So he had 2 jobs, and also got his MBA through Pepperdine at the same time. So it's funny, conversely, I have so much of my work ethic is because of my dad. Mm-hmm. And if like my dad had 4 kids and he had 2 jobs and was getting his MBA, then I can do all these things. Whether that's healthy or not, it drives me to get a lot done. But I'm that person who needs to always think about things and pull myself back, because I know I have the capacity to do things. But it's also led to deep burnout, which I had in my mid-40s when I shut down my first PR firm, because I never took any time off. I just kept going, giving, doing, and never had a moment, because I thought that's what you had to do. And I know it all stems back.
Well, here at a transformation, what a powerful moment you find yourself in, where like you get to be reflective and parent yourself in the ways in which maybe you always sought to be parented and loved. Like you get to sort of create that version, which is incredible. And so thinking about, some of these qualities at a young age, I mean, babysitting doesn't sound like you were getting paid to babysit. It sounds like Jen was, she's the third parent, if you will, in this. Did these experiences, as you were sort of going through high school, was being the third parent your part-time job? How did you kind of look at the development of your young self, as you were moving through these high school years? How did you express yourself? What were some of the things that you did? Did you have an idea at that time you were going to go on to run an agency? When did these sort of entrepreneurial spirited things start to take hold of you?
I didn't know anything then, which is interesting, Shama, but you can, when you're looking back and doing all the work and the deep therapy and deep soul work that I have done over the past 20 years, I can see this sort of through line of, okay, you remember when I got my first planner, I think it was in 3rd grade, and I was like, whoa, I'm taking notes, and we get to write things down and check things off. And therapist did tell me, though, my need to control also is a result of not feeling sort of emotionally safe. And so to control, I could control my grades, I could control my to-do lists and how I showed up in the world. Those were the things I can control. So it was a protectionary mechanism. So it was very interesting because I didn't learn that for years later. And then as a sidebar, I went through coaching training a number of years ago, and they said, and I've since heard this in other realms, and I know we both like Joe Dispenza and, all the spiritual leaders and gurus and the people can make us be better. But said that the universe gives you the exact parents that you needed to do the work that you are meant to do in the world today. And so that was an interesting reframe. It wasn't until that point where I could reframe my parents, especially my father, to say that, okay, I had him, we had such a contentious relationship, and it's bad. We don't have a long enough time to talk about it, but it set me up for being the person I am today, which I'm empathetic and I've struggled and I've kind of been through the fire and back and rebuilt. And it set me up to be who I am today. And I wouldn't be who I am without all of us. None of us would be who we are if it weren't for the situations and the parents that we had. But, as a kid though, this might sound shocking to you, I was the gatherer, the party planner. I was the one, when we all got out of college, was the one who helped everybody. This is how you network. This is how you get a job. This is how you write your resume. This is a thank you note. And I'm still that person for friends today, but now like on a more global scale. So I had no idea, Shama, what I was going to be when I grew up. I went to college. I was firmly steeped in liberal arts and graduated with an English major and a communications minor. And at the time, I was going to major in communications, but it really didn't. It's so more robust now. So I'm like, let's go do English. And then I was like, okay, you're out. And so what the hell do you do with an English major? Long story short, my mom had a friend who was a publicist in Hawaii, and she offered me my first job. And like day one, I was working for her and getting pressed to show up at a Broadway play to Honolulu. So that's how I started my career in public relations. There was no plan. It was somebody give me a job. Oh, that sounds cool. And then that at the age of, 23 set me off on this journey. But when you look back at like that through line, and this is what I have my clients, no matter where they are, like look at where your strengths are and look at what you've always done, because it's usually not a surprise as to how that shows up in your professional life.
Oh, totally. It's really, I think it's so interesting. And public relations, I spent 1 year out of university in PR, and, it's really effing hard work. I mean, it is, I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be friends with people I don't like. I need to hang out with people that I might think are doorknobs. Like it really puts you up against a lot. It is hard work. And so it's so funny because that takes, a lot of people don't understand sort of what it takes to do PR well and sort of what it requires of you and your time and your energy. I mean, relationships. Today, people talk a lot about community building in relationships, but PR is sort of one of those OG professions where you had to community build and have relationships. Otherwise, you are not going to be successful. And you managed to have a very successful agency and career in PR. PR is also not known when you're working at an agency to pay well. And so in these early days, as you were deciding, okay, I'm going to go into PR, I got this first job. Did you have an inclination to, negotiate a salary? Was it, thank God I got this great job out of college? How did you sort of think about money as you were getting your career going? What role did it play?
You just made me think of the funniest thing from that. This was circa 1993 in Honolulu, and my PR internship paid me $7.50 an hour.
My gosh.
So I learned early on, it was glamorous on the outside because this publicist I was working for like Hermes and the Broadway shows that came in, and we did all these fancy things. And meanwhile, I'm like eating Cheerios for lunch and driving a beater car and putting my outfits on a credit card. And I was had to live at home. I tried to live with some friends, and you could not, obviously, no one can live on $7.50 an hour. And then my first big PR job in Hawaii, it was $25,000 a year, which is still, and that was 1993. And I feel like, and that's a whole other conversation, salaries haven't really changed and sort of met up with like where we are in the economy and the cost of living and all of that. But in PR in general, and you bring up a good point, in agencies and when you're young, you don't make a lot of money. You just don't. I had like $25,000 job. 2 years later, I was in Colorado. I was working for a small firm. I made $27,000 a year. And again, perks, we had Vail as a client, and the agency owners had a condo, and I could ski for free and do all these things, but yet could barely pay my rent and all of that because the money doesn't go very far. Fast forward, I worked at some big agencies in San Francisco. Those paid a lot more. And so things started to change. But then what happened with that was I didn't like tech, and that's where all the jobs were. And I was like, oh, and then it was like and everyone was crazy back in the day. That was early 2000s. And it was sort of, the beginning of the end of the dot-com bust and like pre 9/11 and then going into 9/11 when if anybody was in San Francisco at the time, everybody was unemployed. Everybody was at Giants games. Nobody was working. If you're banking, legal, like everybody was unemployed. The funny thing about me, Shama, though, is because of this work ethic I've always had a job. I've always worked or I've always made something happen. And so even in that downturn, I'm that girl who's like, you're hiring me. Like you're hiring me and you're paying me this. So once I kind of got a taste of, okay, there is money to be made here and knowing how hard you work and knowing what you bill out. I mean, there's a max because of just the financial models that agencies use, which aren't on the benefit of the employee. You work the system a little bit, but in short, when I was laid off from my second job because we lost a big multi-million-dollar client, and in the agency world, when you lose multi-million-dollar clients, 25 people on a team get let go. And that's just how it is. And I said, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like not being in control. And we had just come up with something really huge with a really big tech company. I knew my billable hours were close to $80,000 in 1 month. I'm like, if I'm going to work this hard, I'm going to work for myself and I'm going to get paid. So that's when things changed. And so I casually sort of started my business. I was an entrepreneur on accident. So I haven't worked for anybody in over 20 years. I started my first agency in 2003 in San Francisco, Koa Communications, which is named after a Hawaiian wood because it's strong and rooted, but nobody knew what the name was. And everybody thought the Koa Campground Association. Okay, whatever. But I built my whole company with one wine client that I started. I loved his company, Black Box Wines, and we grew that business. And through mergers and acquisitions, he grew, I grew, we all grew. And then my company was working for Constellation Brands. We did their corporate communications, brand PR. Whole Foods was a client. My agency worked as the internal PR team for Whole Foods for 5 years for Northern California. We were doing crisis communications. So when you're talking about PR being stressful, the kind of PR I was doing, the wine PR, you know, there's certain stresses to everything, but crisis communications is extremely stressful. It takes years off life.
I can't imagine. And so in these brands, when you decided to start your agency, had you, regardless if it's accidental or intentional, it is effing scary, right? It is like, oh my God, I gotta go do this. And so did you have money in a savings account at that time? Like, how did you sort of reconcile for yourself the fear, right? I mean, obviously, you know, no job is ever really secure. And as we both know, working for yourself is probably the most security you ever have. But still at that time, it's scary. And so how did you sort of reconcile emotionally and financially, right, what it was going to take in order to build this business? Had you thought far in advance? Was there a cushion? What was the scenario like that helped you take the leap?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have to think about that too, because we had my husband too, he had been working for another company, was laid off, and he went into real estate. So we kind of both started an entrepreneurial journey together. Now, we didn't have kids. We must have had some savings. I got this 20 years ago. But the funny thing is I know I wasn't scared at all because I'm the best bet I have is me. I know I work hard. I know I've got a great work ethic. I know how to get shit done. I know I can be of value to this company. The one mistake I did make, Shama, was not because I wasn't getting paid that first wine client, but I saw trend-wise, I saw where this was going and this was going to be huge. And we built this brand on PR. He did no advertising and my company grew as he grew, but I could see that. And my one regret was not making less and taking a little piece of the company because my client retired at 40 and walked away from everything on something that I helped build. I mean, obviously he was, putting a lot of money up to package the wine and all of that, but I was everything. I was the entire marketing department. So in retrospect, we all have those shoulda, coulda, wouldas. There's a million in our stories about that. But I saw it. I'm I bet on myself. And I think I just always had to do everything by myself. And it was, again, that being the oldest of four, I got on a plane and went to college by myself. My parents didn't take me to school. There was no fanfare. It was just go, make it happen. So that's my through line. I've just made stuff happen. And I've been working since I was 15, my first job in a department store. I was oh, this is great, making your own money. So I've always worked. I've always been productive. So I had that confidence in myself. And I know at the time we probably had some severance, tucked away. And then I just started making money. And then my husband pivoted his career into real estate. He started making money. And then my company just grew and grew and grew. And not having the words for it, I have it for now, but it's that abundance mindset and focusing on I was always like, if we want more money, we'll just get more clients and we'll just welcome them in. We never stressed about it. And the beauty about my first business was it was all referral. It was all referral. I never did any outbound marketing.
That's amazing. And so you and your husband then both entering into this, real wild, wild west as both sort of being self-sufficient and business owners and paving your own way. How did you guys sort of approach together, the conversations around money? Your business is growing, he's riding highs and lows. Like you guys are sort of on this journey and of course, building a future and, building a family together. What were those conversations like? How did you reconcile business profitability and business conversations with like your personal life and how you guys made decisions together?
Yeah. So having two entrepreneurs in the family, first of all, it's very scary to everyone outside and the people that love you. Like, why doesn't somebody just go get a real job? I mean, you get those comments all the time. You're like, we got it. We got it. We had to learn early on, and we're still dealing with this now because, we're still business owners and businesses have changed. He's a partner in a company and I've got my secondary business. So a couple things have to happen. And we've realized early on that we couldn't get into each other's business too much and give each other advice too much from a business perspective, not from a money, let's sit down and talk perspective, because we just know who we are. And then we had to have that time where we're just not talking about work, because as anyone listening is an entrepreneur and working out, you could talk about work all the time and you've got to actually shut it down. There have been things that we needed to walk away from because we couldn't do. And I'm a big fan too of, we look back at some financial missteps or, we all have those missed opportunities. Oh, we should have bought that thing or maybe not sold that thing. But, it's just all information. And I just think, we'll just beat ourselves up. Like for the condo, we should have bought for $125,000 in Hawaii in 2003. Well, yes, do the math. You just can't think about things like that. But so it comes down to a few things where we've always known that we can bet on ourselves. We've always made it happen. There's been highs and lows, and always knowing that we sort of pull through and make it happen. And we've been married 26 years. How long have we been married? 26 years. And there's always going to be these ups and downs. And the reason we both are entrepreneurs too is we had this freedom with our family because we didn't want to be locked in. And of course, back in the day, you had to be in an office and you were locked in, and we needed that freedom and flexibility. And we quite frankly knew we were going to take some financial hits. It's hard to be an entrepreneur. It's hard, especially when one of us is in real estate. I was the steady income back in the day. I had retainer clients. If we need more money to do something, we'll get another client. Great. Now we can pay for that trip to Europe or pay for the kids' preschool. And then things, of course, get more complex. I've got a child in college, so that's bringing up new conversations and money conversations that we're having today and how we're looking at the next 5 years of, do we want to stay where we are? I have 2 more at home that will be out the door in 2 years. So it's been this up and down, and I know we can do things better. And so we actually have just made a commitment to ourselves to have more honest conversations. Whereas I would say the past 20 years, we've always made it work. We've talked, we've been in sync. There's obviously times we haven't been in sync and we've ebbed and flowed, like businesses have ebbed and flowed, and it's always worked. And so our challenge to ourselves for the next 20 years, especially looking, I'm 55, my husband's 56. I mean, we're not quitting working for myriad reasons, but I mean, we love it. It ain't over till it's over. I don't ever plan on stopping working. But, we're looking at very real big costs with soon to have 3 kids in college and wanting to be there for them and help them get set up and all those types of things. So we're looking at our financial realm a lot differently than we did. I think it was the hubris of youth where it all just worked out and we were, investors in other properties and we bought and sold places over here and some things worked, some things didn't work out. Times are tough, in somebody's business over here, we had to sell something. So, and this is probably familiar with everyone listening, there's always going to be these ups and downs. And then we're also looking at our parents. And, my husband has already lost his dad almost 20 years ago, and his mom is not in super great health. And so there's just, the sandwich generation of kind of looking holistically of, how do we best do this? And I'm having this also an extended conversation with my siblings of how we can do this together. So there isn't any trauma and drama. And we fully intend my mom's going to live for 20 more years, but because she's both my parents are 78, but like, how do we want that to look like? Like, how do we want our place in Hawaii to look like? Because we want that to be a gathering spot. So it's very interesting conversations we're having now versus 20 years ago is no worries. All of a sudden, though, when you've got 3 kids in college and you've got aging parents, it's a different lens. And we're bringing in help, which we used to, we've had financial advisors and things like that. But I'm upping it. Like, we're upping it. So we are, I'm great at marketing. I'm great at putting women in the spotlight. I'm great at podcasting. I'm great at gathering people together. And I will fully admit that, I have a bookkeeper, I have an accountant. Like, that's not my strong suit. And I want to be looking into the future smartly. I want to invest in companies. That's where I want to use my expertise too, and my knowledge, and invest in companies, help other people grow, because that's my natural state of being. So I want to look to do it in different and exciting ways. Did that answer your question?
That. Yes. I mean, in so many different ways. And so, Jen, obviously, you mentioned caring for aging parents. Like, you're definitely sending kids to college. You are in a heavy cash output phase. I mean, this is, one of the things that I think is so important that we don't often talk about with money is there for you to do something with it. And so there are these ebbs and flows of what it needs to be used for, and sort of where it gets to be best placed. And it's certainly a blessing to be able to be in a position to have the conversation with siblings about what do we do about parents, and to be able to have the conversations with your children about how do we send you to college, and, what does that even look like? So the optionality and even the ability to have the conversations is a privilege, but also stressful, because there are so many other places and additional places that I'm sure, you want to put your resources towards, and things sort of get to navigate in a really fluid way. I think that's so open and honest and vulnerable of you to share that sort of sticky middle ground of what it's like to be pulled, sort of in these opposite directions. And so for yourself, like, as you are thinking about business today, now having an understanding of where you are now, and also thinking about just the sheer fact that we live so much longer, right? So it's like there's, your mom might live till she's, 98, but you're likely to live well into your hundreds, right? And so there's so much more that's sort of ahead of you, and it's so hard to know what is coming up. But as you're looking at, let's say, your growth as a entrepreneur, as a business owner, and really sort of thinking about the legacy and impact, what it is that you're creating, talk me through sort of the vision now. Like, you've had so many visions before that have come to realizations, and it's so clear that you are just a tenacious hard worker who's gonna go make it happen, whether or not it came from traumatic childhood or not. You still have that in you, right? So what is it that you're really looking to create here in this world? What does legacy start to look like for you?
So I love this question, because legacy for me, and this is part of sort of this, my whole pivot and my own rebrand and sort of my own coming to Jesus. And some people call it sort of the menopause, like this heroine's journey. And I loved it. I was interviewed on another podcast, and we really looked at sort of midlife as this heroine's journey when you've been living half your life one way, and then we get to design what this second half of life looks like. And that's why I got so excited about empowering women, because basically it started with me needing to empower myself. And so, how I started the agency, and why I have the podcast, and why I'm screaming, "You're not too fucking old" from the rooftops. I mean, first and foremost, to your point, we are living longer. So I don't know who's retiring. And so it's a really dangerous place for women to be if you don't have all your financial shit in order, because we know by the time we hit midlife, half of us are divorced. We have spouses that, pass away. I've had many women on my show that have just met, they had their life one way, one day, and then the next day they wake up and it's another way. And I want to get all maudlin, but I just feel like women are incredible. We're living so much longer, like you said, and we really hit our stride in midlife. And unfortunately, the traditional working world, you start to get the messages. I felt like I was feeling in my late 30s, but you really start to get those messages that you're too old, you're going to be too expensive, you're going to be aged out. And so I thought for 25 seconds, maybe when I was around 30, I'm like, I'm going to go talk to some people I know and see. I talked to some like funds who worked with like, food businesses and this and that. I'm like, can I advise here or do something there? And it really became clear to me that it was, you're not wanted. You're not going to get paid. They want somebody with 10 years experience, not 25 years experience. I'm like, all right, that was a little test. I'm just going to do it again. I've just been doing it myself. So again, I'm just going to bet on myself. And so when I started my agency and the podcast, it was with this mission of there's all this opportunity. Women want to work. Women are so smart. There's women who have had to step aside because of, whatever reason, raising kids, this, that, and the other, that you get to and this is my whole thing. You're not too fucking old and you get to step into the spotlight. And so, but women need tools. They need the encouragement. They need empowerment. So that's why I do events. It's why I have the agency. It's why I'm launching this program. Woohoo, shiny new program, stepping into the spotlight to up-level your brand so you get seen, heard, paid, and make an impact. And we are absolutely all capable of that. And I know what the barriers and the roadblocks are. You don't have the skills, or you feel like it's that fear and the shame and all the stuff that we grew up with. It's, women, you and I know women who are highly accomplished, who still have fear. They still have fear of being seen, the fear of stepping out because of all the, just sit in the corner. Don't be too much. Don't be too loud, but yet if you don't say anything, then you're also penalized if you don't say anything. So just like, fuck it already. Like it's over. It's done. We've just got to step into who we actually are. And I've done that unapologetically. And I know, look, when I was going out with You're Not Too Fucking Old, I know there was going to be people who are like clutching their pearls going, what is she saying? I said, I have to make this provocative. I mean, this is me. It was intentional. It's hot pink. It's provocative. It's to shake people up to know you're not too fucking old.
That's right.
You can go get the money for your business. You can go sit on that board. You can start something because we are just beginning. And so you can tell this is like, I get so fired up about this, but it's like, it came from leading myself and seeing what's out there. And I hear it all the time because I talk to so many women. I have a client right now who is in the highest position on this big board. And she's still, or actually, when I leave you today, we're going to go do her photo shoot. And we're doing all her new branding and her positioning. And she was afraid to put herself forward. Highly accomplished. She is in the highest level of a position. And yet, like most women, isn't confident in stepping up and out. Like we had this conversation. I don't want to be too out there or too showy or too loud. And that's all that conditioning and that programming. And I said, you can't help anybody and help mentor the other women that you want to help in this very male-dominated world that you're in. You can't help them if you don't get out there and you're not seen.
Of course. I mean, I think that is incredible that you get to do that for clients. And then also incredible that you get to lead that way as a mom. I'd love to sort of double click on just how incredible it is for your children to see two entrepreneurs in the family, to be able to really understand, what it's like to create a life, to live dreams, to be able to ebb and flow with the world and create your own rules. How have you sort of taken your messaging and certainly conversations around money, independence, being able to be on your own and know how much things cost? I mean, my God, milk is really expensive these days. Like, how are your conversations with your children right now? And sort of what does that look like from the lens of independence, financial knowledge, et cetera?
Oh, you're going to love this. So, I mean, my kids are my greatest work. And I just want to double down on the fact that kids learn by watching us, not by listening to us. So they see my husband and I working hard, and they, especially for my girls, to see what I've accomplished and how I completely changed my business and decided, and coming from a place of abundance and what's possible and not taking no for an answer, which, the no would be coming from your own head for most of us, and going out there and creating something new in my 50s. That is so powerful for my girls to see. It's very powerful for my son to see. He's not going to admit it now, but his future wife can thank me later because he's been like, and he's got a strong grandma, he's got strong sisters. But, I've taken my girls to events. I looped them into when I was launching the podcast. I said, what do you girls think about my intro and my outro? So I got them involved in it. And it's funny. I had a big event with like 100 women earlier this year, and I had the girls there. They were passing out the gift bags and welcoming people. And so many women came to me after, and they're like, oh my God, the next time you do these events, I'm bringing my daughters, because when they see us in action and women supporting women and seeing women, because all the women I had around me speaking at this event in their 50s, one with a startup, like getting a second round of funding, another one a financial advisor whose company just got acquired. Then there's me doing all the things that I'm doing, and another woman who is running this restaurant. That's the world that they see. So they know that anything is possible at any age. There isn't going to be the quarter life crisis that they say they have at 25. I mean, 25. I mean, come on. That's like an infant. But as far as the money conversation too, so they see this like what's possible, and they see that mom and dad are just making it happen. I don't have to rely on anyone else, like a company or anybody else, to make money. All of my kids have worked. So my son is not currently working right now in college. He probably will pick up a job, I'm thinking, next semester. But my girls are both working at this local tennis club. And they do their homework, and they're so excited to see the money in their bank account, and they've set up savings accounts. They're very mindful of what they spend their money on. And it's the best thing a parent can do is have your kids work for money. So that's the only way that they're going to understand what things cost. If you're just an open ATM, and I mean, hello, I'm not perfect. My kids are spoiled. They have more than 95% of this country, but that's why it's really important to double down and let them learn the value of a dollar. It's like, you know how long it took you to make that money. Do you really want to go to Sephora and buy that 50th like face cream or whatever they're doing?
I love that. I love that so much, Jen. And so as far as like where, obviously you guys are entrepreneurial, as far as looking at like, how you guys invest your money. Is it mostly stock market? Is it in real estate? Like, how have you guys sort of decided where does it go?
Okay. I have to tell you one quick story before I answer that, because you're going to love this. My son is pursuing finance in college. And so he gets up early to trade. So he's taken all the AP Econ stat, and he's also applying to be into the business school. He goes to school in Boulder. So he wakes up early every morning. So again, he's got this work ethic by observing, and he, watches my husband a lot. My husband's been running his business for 20 years. My husband watches the financial markets because of real estate. So they have these conversations.
That's amazing.
So I just wanted to make sure that everyone listen to that, because it's really important to involve your kids in that. So they talk about, the Fed raised the rate today, and and they talk about stocks.
What does it mean? Yeah.
So my son trades on Robinhood, and he's got an account. I'm like, what happened to all your money? Because he still kind of tries to hit me up for money, because it's all, he's invested it all. And he gets up every morning to trade. So I love that. He's already set up his LinkedIn profile, and we're already going to be looking for some great info.
Amazing.
Summer. And, my daughter lent my son money for something, and she's like, you're paying me back with interest on this. This is what you owe me. And so that stuff's not going to happen unless you're sort of modeling this and giving them responsibility and having them. So I'm like, if they're not going to accept my kids who are actually out there working for real money, and they're showing up and they're being responsible, I mean, please, that's like the proof is in the pudding. So as it relates to us, we've kind of done it all. We've bought and sold multiple pieces of real estate. We are, we've got the traditional sort of SEP IRAs set up, and I'd have to, this is embarrassing to say. I know my husband has a couple other things set up, but we both have SEPs because we're self-employed. And then he's got another account that just doing just his fund trading account. And interestingly enough, we've got a lot of gold.
Cool.
So,
wow. I love that.
We've got a lot of gold.
That's so cool.
My husband's a little bit of a fatalist. Like, what if everything crashes? And he's very much like afraid of, if we just go all digital with currency, like how that's all going to go. So we have those conversations. So we've got gold, and we've got other investments like classic cars. So we've kind of got things spread out, and our future goals are to own more real estate. Clearly, I'm going to buy a place in Hawaii, because I didn't get the $125,000 property in 2002. And yes, that still hurts. So we're looking at that. And investing in, so he's looking in some car businesses. So it's kind of his passion project and something that's a recurring theme that's popping up. So I know something like that's going to happen. And my personal, just for my own wealth building, I want to invest in female founded companies that are doing amazing things in the women's health world.
Yes.
Because I'm extremely passionate about that. A lot of those women are my clients and I do deep work with them. And I love, the Julie Castro Abrams of the world who want to bring women together and help us all become wealthy. I mean, she's been on my podcast and she's amazing. I'm like, you're in the same ilk of Julie, of course. And so that's my personal.
I love
and I
that.
think that's a fun thing to do because it just makes me happy for all of us banding together. And that's your whole thing, getting rich together.
I
want us all to get rich together, honey. I want us to be in the cutest, Prada muumuus when we're 75 or 80 or whatever. My mom doesn't wear muumuus. My mom dresses really cute. I don't even know who wears muumuus anymore. But, designing the life and coming from abundance and knowing if I want to. My husband and I look at our sort of our vision board of, I cried some tears with my son going to school, but I look at the next couple of years. I'm like, well, we're going to be traveling the world and I'm going to be doing some keynote speech in New York and are working with clients here. And then we'll be, jetting off to Bali to go do a Michael Franti retreat midweek in October, somewhere there. And so that's on the vision board. And so we're backing out everything that needs to happen, multiple recurring revenue streams that doesn't require us to be, in the office all day.
I think that's amazing. And so, my favorite last two questions of the show, the first one, Jen, is what are some of your favorite ways to spend your money? If you have some extra cash and you get to go buy the things or experiences or whatever it is, what are some of your favorite ways to spend your money?
Okay, so money or gift giving is my number one love language, which is hysterical. I don't know if you guys have taken that quiz yourself. My husband's is like touch, so he needs a hug and I need a present. Yeah. So first and foremost, I love to spend my money on experiences and travel. I've always been a travel girl and it's something that it's fun to do with work, but now we just had our heads down and the kids and getting them out the door. So expect to see a jet setter in the next 2 years once my girls go off to college and you'll see me.
Private jet, baby. Let's go.
Let's put that on the vision board, Shama. Let's put that one on the vision board.
Let's go.
And I'd like to buy myself like a little bauble or like a cute jacket or a cute article of clothing because I firmly believe if you're feeling in a funk and, you can make yourself feel better with just a great article of clothing and you can step into who you are by a great outfit.
I love that. And then my last question, is around what we can do to support you. What is it you're calling in right now? What are some of the big asks of the universe? How can we show up?
All right. The way everyone can show up, first of all, because it's like my gift giving thing is if you want help stepping into the spotlight and getting seen, heard, paid, and making an impact, it's my life's work to get women out there. You're not too fucking old. You deserve to be seen and heard. And stepping into the spotlight. I've got a program open right now. It's called Stepping into the Spotlight. So it's basically the program I take all of our agency clients through. So it's up-leveling your branding, your thought leadership, and getting you set up to do all the things that I know everyone listening wants to do. To be more visible, write a book, deliver a keynote speech, to get out there on all the platforms you need to be on so you create more wealth. Because if no one sees you, no one sees you. So you're not going to get invited to the tables of any proverbial table you can think of if no one sees you. And that's like the number one fear, like I said before, of every single woman I work with, like, but I don't want to get on social media or I don't want to go do that event or, oh, I'm uncomfortable. No, we're going to work on that. You're going to get out there because if you stay in that place, you ain't going to be getting rich together with nobody because you got to get out there and you got to get seen. So that's my love language. So, come on into that program. You can go to, sign up for my newsletter, go to my website, jenmarples.com. And so you can be, in the loop about everything and learn about the program. Follow me on social media at Jen Marples. And then the thing I would love to ask all of you to do is to listen to my podcast, which is the Jen Marples Show. Shama has been on the show. I've got badasses like her on there. And the whole reason for being in the show, of course, to let you know that you're not too fucking old to really do whatever you want, but to step into the spotlight. And so I bring on women like Shama. I bring on women to help you find your purpose. I bring on doctors to talk about menopause because if we don't have our health, we got nothing. Health has to be the number one. Wealth doesn't matter if we don't have our health.
That's right.
You're not living long enough to see it. So come on into the Jen Marples Show because it is a show for everyone. And it's super empowering. And my guests are also fabulous. And I have some badass guests coming up. So my ask is follow me, subscribe, Spotify or on Apple, and so you don't miss out.
Yay! Jen Marples, you are a powerhouse. I am so grateful for your open and vulnerable shares today. Thank you for opening up your heart and sharing with us all of the incredible ways in which you've turned out into the amazing woman you are. I am grateful to have you here.
Well, I'm grateful to be here. And I'm also, so grateful to call you a friend. I just think you're doing amazing work in the world. And I just love and adore you.
Oh, thanks, Jen.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Getting Rich Together. Please take a minute to subscribe. And if you like this episode, I'd love it if you could share it with a friend who is ready to elevate their financial future. Until next time, let's keep getting rich together.